Ever wonder what secrets lie hidden in the pages of American history? Not the kind you read about in textbooks, but the stories that were intentionally buried, the truths that were never meant to see the light of day. Today, we're embarking on an extraordinary journey to uncover one of the biggest secrets America was never meant to know. A story so profound, it could change the way you see the nation forever. This isn't about conspiracy theories or far-fetched tales. This is about a documented, yet largely forgotten, chapter of American history. We're talking about a movement so powerful, so revolutionary, that it sent shockwaves through the corridors of power. It's a story of everyday people, farmers, laborers, and visionaries who dared to challenge the status quo and imagine a different kind of America. So, what is this great secret? It's the story of the populist movement of the late 19th century. Now, you might be thinking, populism? I've heard that word before. But the populism of the 1890s was radically different from how we use the term today. This wasn't just a political style. It was a grassroots uprising against the immense corporate power and financial elites who had come to dominate the Gilded Age. Imagine a time, much like our own, where wealth inequality was skyrocketing. A handful of railroad barons, bankers, and industrial tycoons, often called the robber barons, controlled the nation's economy. Meanwhile, millions of farmers were trapped in a brutal cycle of debt. They toiled day and night, producing the food that fed the nation, yet they were being crushed by predatory lending practices, monopolistic railroad rates, and a monetary system that seemed designed to keep them poor. But instead of despairing, these farmers organized. They started in small local groups called farmers' alliances. They were educational societies, meeting in schoolhouses and rural churches to discuss economics and politics. They taught themselves complex monetary policy, studied corporate law, and shared strategies for survival. This was a movement built on knowledge and community. From these humble beginnings, they built something incredible, the largest cooperative movement in American history. They created their own network of cooperative stores, grain elevators, and cotton gins to bypass the exploitative middlemen. They pooled their resources to buy supplies in bulk and sell their crops together, fighting for fair prices. They were building an alternative economy, a cooperative commonwealth, right under the noses of the corporate giants. This was economic democracy in action, a direct challenge to the power of Wall Street and big business. But they soon realized that economic cooperation alone wasn't enough. The system itself was rigged against them. So they did something even bolder. They formed their own political party, the People's Party, also known as the Populists. And in 1892, they held a national convention in Omaha, Nebraska, and drafted one of the most radical and forward-thinking platforms in American history. What did they demand? Things that might sound surprisingly familiar. They called for a progressive income tax, so the wealthy would pay their fair share. They demanded the public ownership of railroads, telegraphs, and telephone systems, arguing that essential infrastructure should serve the people, not private profit. They advocated for a flexible currency system, not controlled by private banks, to break the grip of deflation that was strangling them. They also called for the direct election of senators and the 8-hour workday. Think about that for a moment. Over 130 years ago, these farmers and workers were advocating for ideas that were so far ahead of their time, many of them wouldn't become law for decades. Some are still being debated today. They weren't just reacting to their problems. They were proposing concrete, systemic solutions. They were articulating a vision of a government that actively works for the well-being of all its citizens, not just the powerful few. The populist movement was also remarkably inclusive for its time. They made a concerted effort to build a coalition between white and black farmers, especially in the South. Leaders like Tom Watson of Georgia initially preached a message of class solidarity, famously saying, "You are kept apart that you may be separately fleeced of your earnings." They understood that racial division was a tool used by the elite to maintain control. Though this alliance was fragile and ultimately fractured under the immense pressure of Jim Crow racism, its very existence was a revolutionary act. For a brief, shining moment, it looked like they might succeed. In the 1892 election, their presidential candidate, James B. Weaver, won over 1 million votes and carried 4 states, a stunning achievement for a third party. They elected governors, senators, and scores of state legislators. The establishment was terrified. The two major parties, Democrats and Republicans, saw this grassroots movement as an existential threat to their power, which was deeply intertwined with corporate interests. So, how was such a powerful movement defeated and erased from our collective memory? The system fought back, and it fought dirty. The corporate-owned press relentlessly ridiculed the populists, painting them as ignorant, uneducated farmers who didn't understand economics. They were mocked as hayseeds and dangerous radicals. Sound familiar? The Democratic Party, seeing the populist threat, co-opted their most popular issue, currency reform, and nominated William Jennings Bryan in 1896. This brilliant political maneuver effectively absorbed and neutralized the People's Party, splitting their base and ending their run as an independent political force. Furthermore, the ruling elite in the South brutally suppressed the movement using voter fraud, intimidation, and an escalation of racial violence to break the interracial alliance that gave the populists their strength. The secret America was never meant to know is this: ordinary people once built a powerful democratic movement that nearly transformed the nation. They created a blueprint for a government of, by, and for the people. They proved that citizens, when united and educated, have the power to challenge even the most entrenched systems of wealth and power. This history was buried because it's a dangerous story for those who benefit from the status quo. It reminds us that things don't have to be the way they are. It shows us that the struggles we face today, with corporate monopolies, wealth inequality, and a political system that feels unresponsive, are not new. And more importantly, it shows us that we have the power to fight back. The legacy of the populists lives on in the reforms they championed: the progressive income tax, the direct election of senators, and regulations on big business. They lost the battle, but in many ways they won the war of ideas. Their story is a vital part of the American heritage, a source of inspiration, and a roadmap for change. It's a secret that deserves to be rediscovered, shared, and remembered. Thank you for joining me on this journey into our hidden history. If you found this story as powerful as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep these important stories alive. Until next time, stay curious.